We'll see. Well, yeah. Good afternoon.
Yes,
We're
and we
live.
are live. So that's great. We are not live on Twitter because they want money. So I'm just removing that. Great. Okay, so we're live everywhere else that matters. And I'm going to introduce Jim, who is our webmaster, tech person extraordinaire for everything Remote Work Europe. And I can't believe he's actually available for extra work if you're quick. So it's highly recommended. I haven't found quite enough to keep him busy this week. And then I'll hand over to Jim to introduce everything else.
Yeah, thanks very much, Maya. Well, the podcast today is about webinar today is about your new book, which you're launching today, and that is Beyond MLM, a comprehensive guide to reclaiming your future. What's the inspiration behind writing it? I mean, but we're talking about MLMs, which most people know as multi-level marketing, pyramid schemes. Is a huge there's a whole thing surrounding MLMs, but I think you've taken a very unique perspective on writing this book. So I'm just curious about what's kind of the backing behind it. What kind of personal experiences help you shape this?
Well, as you know, I've been working online for a long time. And in fact, even before that, I came across MLMs back when I was a student and even doing some normal jobs back, which was a long time ago. But these things have been around for decades. And in fact, I first came across MLMs when I was a student. And at the time, I also had my first business, which was a jewelry craft business. And even at that time, I very quickly became aware of the scaling issues with that kind of business. This idea that I couldn't sell more than I could make. I couldn't see any way to grow that business. It was more fun than working in a bar, but it wasn't. It was just student pin money. So I came across this model, which sounded really good. That you get one person and they recruit 6 people, and each of those recruits 6 people, and we're all going to be millionaires. So this sounded pretty good to me back in the 90s as a penniless student selling earrings. And I went along to some meetings. In fact, I'll mention the brand. It was Amway because they're still around. At that time, I think they were fairly new in the UK. The networks were starting to get going because this was sort of mid-90s. But the style, with great respect, Jim, was very American. It was very kind of evangelical. I went to some of these meetings, which were quite, they were like religious meetings. They were very strange. And the person who'd introduced us to more senior people in their upline. And I just felt, what am I getting into? It was very weird. They were insisting that we had to, well, if you can't afford to come to a meeting, sell your television because you don't need that. That's just destroying your life. Or leave your partner because he's holding you back. It was all this really weird advice. And I suddenly realized, well, actually quite quickly realized that a lot of the people around who had seen me doing well in that space weren't people I liked very much anyway. So I got out of that before getting into it. So that was my first encounter with MLM back in the day. And I also went to a couple of parties, which were quite common around that time. Not parties you will have been invited to, Jim, because they were strictly for women only. And it was another line that was getting going across the UK at that time for a line of products, which at that time I don't think you could buy in the high street at all. So they were being sold through this network model and demonstrating. And yeah, that was quite fun. The parties were fun. And they handed out sort of opaque envelopes for you to pop your order in at the end of the night if you wanted to. So those are my earliest experiences with MLM. But they've always been around. They've always been there over the years. And since moving to Spain a lot of years ago now, I was always aware that a lot of people seem to be dipping in and out of these things, particularly amongst the expat communities, because it was difficult for people then to get normal jobs if they were expat partners, if they didn't speak the language and so on. And frankly, setting up businesses is hard. I saw a lot of local businesses really suffer during the financial crisis, sort of, well, 2 financial crises ago. A lot of local businesses were going under. So it was this idea that you could set up a business and it didn't cost very much and you could just sell to people you knew. I could see why that was really attractive to people who didn't want to risk everything on a bar or a cafe and so on. I also came across MLMs quite a lot maybe sort of 4 or 5 years ago, when I was doing some investigative journalism in the financial space and looking at the scams that were emerging around cryptocurrencies and non-existent cryptocurrencies like BitConnect, which was similar to OneCoin, which has had a lot of media exposure recently. These were basically people who were taking advantage of the fact that most people had no idea what a cryptocurrency was, so they could just invent one and have people pour their money into it. And just to be clear, those were not MLMs, but they were illegal Ponzi schemes and pyramid schemes. But there was a lot that was similar about them. So that was interesting to look at from an investigations point of view. And a lot of those have got exposed for what they were. But in the meantime, the product-based ones are still going on. And since we set up Remote Work Europe, and starting with the Remote Work Spain group, they are hammering on our door every day. Literally every day, I'm deleting out the supplements, the milkshakes. CBD seems to be dipping down a bit now, but it will come back. These things are really cyclical. They just keep going with their dangerous claims, with their no consequences. And they're very prevalent in the UK group as well. We get an awful lot of the ones who are trying to sell packages to be a travel agent. It's all so alluring. I can totally understand it. It's really disingenuous. And I just got fed up with simply blocking them, because I'm really aware that I've met people who've got involved in these things. They've had really bad social consequences, sometimes financial consequences. And the pattern I started to see is that the people who were getting involved with these things, firstly, they are victims too of this whole process. And I felt I was not helping them by simply blocking them when they keep posting this stuff. I wasn't offering them anything better. And secondly, they were people I wanted to help, because they'd seen that thing I saw years ago that you can and you should in business aim for that disconnection between time and money, that not that linear income. They were people who wanted something more, and they've been sold the wrong thing. So really, we should be trying to help those people instead of just shutting them down. That was the real motivation. So it was a long answer for the first question.
Well, it's a good answer, but it reminds me of, I mean, we as humans, we seem to fall for the promise, and there's always, innovation, and there's always scarcity. And somehow where those kind of meet in the middle, there's someone ready to be opportunistic about it and take people along for the ride. And it reminds me of, the carnival barkers, the midway at the fair, where you pays your money and you take your chance, but you're never going to win. You're never going to knock over all the cans, but you kind of know what you're walking into with that. You say, oh, I'll put a euro down here and I'll knock over the cans. If I don't, I had to go. We had to laugh about it. Or if I do, I win a teddy bear. But the stakes are much, much higher. It's that same kind of hook in, but the stakes are much, much higher. Where, as you say, there's some emotional manipulation. It's like, well, if you want to be part of this, sell your television or get rid of that dead weight of someone who's trying to tell you, who's saying that this isn't going to go your way. But you mentioned some things like upline and downline. I wonder if, I know that in the book is packed with these definitions, which is good for people coming into this kind of fresh and not really understanding, and they might have a loved one or someone else in the family who might be looking at MLMs and that may not be familiar with the vernacular as it is. But could you explain upline and downline?
Yeah, and these are all quite characteristics of, I'm going to use the C word now, it is cult-like in terms of the way these networks operate. And part of that is by having their own secret language and their own vernacular that excludes other people and makes you feel like you're in on some amazing secret. But things like the upline, they're the people who recruited you. And it's called an upline because that's how they work. There's this whole long line of people, starting from the ones at the top making the money and shipping the product, right the way down, and it is a line. And then when the only way that you're going to make more money than selling that product is to recruit people downstream of you who then go into your downline. Different programs are going to call these things slightly different. They might not use those terms. And indeed, in the book, we unpack lots of the different models that they use to try and not look at, because of this contamination of the idea with pyramid schemes and Ponzi's. But actually, when they start drawing on that blackboard and it's like 1, you recruit 5, and then they all recruit, it looks an awful lot like a pyramid or a triangle on its side. So, but there are lots of different names and models that they use. So I've done my best to explore all of that in the book. So if you hear these terms around, You think, okay, yeah, that just means people upstream of you in the network. So they're the ones who have a vested interest in you staying in, or the people downstream of you that you might make some money off.
Yeah. You mentioned this sort of the cult word. I agree that there's lots of personality and lifestyle kind of being pushed across for some of these MLMs to kind of to get people to come into it. Say this could be yours, and it could be a really well hooked YouTube video showing some wonderful location and some fancy cars and things like that. Again, some of these manipulation tactics. I'm sure there probably are some people, maybe the very top, making money off of people down at the very bottom. But there's some distinctions between. I mean, people will be looking into joining MLMs, not really knowing if it's an MLM yet. So, what are some of the red flags between an MLM and a legitimate real business opportunity? I mean, everyone's going to be looking to make money, whether it's a side hustle or something full time. But what are the things they need to look out for? The key differentiators between, working for yourself or starting an online remote business versus joining an MLM and becoming a boss bro?
It's all very tempting, isn't it? Because everybody wants remote work. But we know, because of the work we do in Remote Work Europe, that real remote jobs are really scarce and competitive. And we do our best to help people who want to go that route. And setting up your own business, that's tough and it's challenging. And there's not a lot of guidance because nobody, can design that business for you. So I think that when someone comes along with literally something like a business in a box, that is tempting. But quite often the way they present initially online is they don't even talk about your own business. A lot of them offer it as online work, or to actually say a job would be an outright lie because they're not going to employ you or give you any kind of contract. But this is part of the problem with the whole thing, the lack of transparency, where they won't even tell you what it is in a public space. You'll always have to DM them to get some more information and so on. And we get an awful lot of people trying to post in our group saying they're looking for sales assistants or something like that. And then you go through and check out their profile and you say, okay, yeah, it's another one of them, blatantly obvious. And the problem is they talk about sales and things like that, but then they go on to say, but anybody can do it. So we're looking for these amazing people to sell our product. The product's great because it sells itself. This job is fantastic for stay-at-home parents, students, retired people, anyone with a bit of time in their hand. And it's this massive disconnect between the fact we know that real remote jobs are devastatingly scarce and competitive and difficult to get into. There is no such thing as an online job that anyone can do. That is the first thing that people simply have to get out of their heads once and for all. That does not exist. If somebody is advertising something that says it's open to anyone, then you are the product. Recruitment is the only product going on here. They are getting rewarded for getting you in, whether that is to buy a package which lets you be a travel agent, because apparently there are people who can't book travel online through the normal channels, but would rather book it through an agent, whether it's to sell a product, whether it's they'll dress it up as digital marketing, high ticket sales. All of these things might have legitimate analogs in the real job world. But if they're saying anyone can do it and we want you, or we don't know who you are, but just DM me anyway and I'll get you in one way or another, then you are the product. And that is the bitter reality that we have to try and get across to people. It comes in so many different guises, and I lump them all in as MLM, even though some of them say, but that's not MLM. My thing is not MLM. We're different, we're better. If they will take anybody and people get paid for recruiting you, then I put it all in the same bucket, I'm afraid, and it's not going to help you make money online.
Yeah. And I see that in many of these structures, people who join these MLMs, they're responsible for buying the products that they then have to resell. They're responsible for booking their own travel. They're responsible for going and joining corporate events. And it all comes out of their own pocket. But that's not the way legitimate businesses work.
Right. I mean, if you were being hired for a job, obviously you would be trained, you would be supplied with your materials, you would receive all of this. But then they say, oh, well, it's not a job. This is better than that because it's your own business. But then it's a business where you're told what to do, what to say, how to work. And you have to keep buying these products. The reason for the product sales is twofold. Obviously, that volume is what makes money flow back up to the people at the very top. And a little bit of it comes off for each node in your upline all the way up, they will get a tiny bit of commission on you. But the second reason is because that is basically, in most jurisdictions, the only legal distinguishing factor between these and illegal Ponzi schemes, because there has to be a product. And that's great for the upline because you have to keep buying it. They might have a minimum volume that you've either got to sell or purchase each month, for example, to retain your status in the network. And, that means that you continue to have access to all the other stuff. And just as a sidebar, some of that other stuff, the motivational training, the sales training, stuff like that can be really good. It can be genuine skills that can help you in business and in life. It's just that you can get those somewhere else without having to have a garage full of out-of-date milkshakes because you opted into this thing. And that's the only way you can keep your card-carrying membership, is to keep stocking up on these minimum volumes of products that you're having trouble shifting because everybody else is already in your network and you're all trying to sell them to each other. So some of the actual techniques and training, the personal motivation, learning how to sell, learning how to use social media, I have no problem with any of those things. It's just the context in which they're offered. And I'd much rather help people find access to those trainings somewhere else.
Yeah. It's very difficult. I think when you join these as a whole, there's a social and support network that wants to keep you in, and you also have your existing social and support network that's trying to pull you out. So again, you get into that kind of emotional manipulation of where do you go? Where's the line? And how do you find that recovery? Which brings me to some of the points of the book, which I mean, I'm biased. I read it. I quite like it. I wouldn't, but there's a good emphasis in the book on recovery and empowerment and sort of helping people get out of those and look for better and more real opportunities where you can. I'll go off and tack for a second. If I'm working for a real company, I know that I can go and look up their turnover online. I can see what kind of a legitimate business they are by finding out what they are. But I think with some of these other ones, with some of the MLMs, it's more difficult to find. I forgot what the word is. Is it income disclosure statements? Is that
income disclosure statement is the thing to Google?
Yeah.
It's not a phrase you're going to hear from your upline or from a motivational event stage speaker at any of these programs, but and I don't think it's even mandated in Europe, which is quite strange. But certainly in the US, the FTC does require that all of these organizations create and share an income disclosure statement. Some of them still don't do it, or I can't find them, and I've done a lot of digging. But if you ask about the incomes from these programs of your upline, you'll get a chart showing you all these different membership levels, and you sell this, you're going to get this much, and the percentage goes up and things like that. But the real income disclosure statement is often very hard to find. I'll show you some of the pathways and breadcrumbs to find it, some of the companies that we've talked about in the guidebook. And that is the thing that they're required to publish in very tiny print somewhere that says what people actually earn and how much they make above and beyond the products that they buy. How much do they actually earn? And it makes quite devastating reading. So I would say this is one of the first questions to ask if somebody is trying to recruit you into one of these schemes. Please show me the most recent year's income disclosure statement. If they look blank, tell them to pass that up the line while you get onto Google and try and seek it out for yourself, because your upline may not even know about it. And this is the thing that will tell you what the average distributor income is for a fixed period, and it will also give you the outlier data. You will find that there are one or two people who are definitely making money out of this thing, but you will find that the vast majority simply are not. And that is because all of the expenses involved in, as you mentioned, the events, the training, the product packs, accessing all these people who are going to change your life with their wisdom that they've acquired simply by being around this thing for a bit longer and recruiting some people, all of that adds up to such a lot compared to the actual turnover of these products, which apparently sell themselves, that people simply don't make money. And that is the biggest lie I have with all of it. Even when it's legal, even when it's completely legitimate, it's not falling foul of any consumer regulations. It's the fact that most people do not make money that we need to scream from the rooftops, because that's the truth of it. These are not real businesses. And honestly, I've met very, very few people who genuinely make a living this way. I have met some. And the only common factor they have, and I don't like saying this about anybody's. I don't like them very much. The very few people I've met who make a genuine living at this, because everybody they meet is a recruit. Everybody they meet, everybody they're ever going to meet is a recruit. Every person they meet, they're sizing up the potential of their network and who they could introduce them to, or what social events they could bump into them on, what audiences they have access to online. I used to run a market research agency where we operated big databases, and we had people trying to get in I'm carrying out a research exercise about what people have for breakfast and things like that. And, what do you mean you can't give me the contact information? You're just a research intermediary. And you dug into who was trying to get this quotation for the research, and they're just trying to get access to people, to audiences. It's a numbers game for them. And, I can't really imagine what it's like to go through life with that kind of transactional attitude to everybody you meet, or everybody you might possibly be able to get in contact with. It's so different from the way we want to do things at Remote Work Europe. And, yes, we do sell things like this book. In fact, I'm going to put the link to buy the book on the screen now.
Yeah.
We're a business, but we're completely honest and transparent about the fact that we're a business. We don't say DM me for details. We say, here's the link. You can go and check out the sales page. You can even get 1/3 off for the next few days just to celebrate our launch. And, you can't sell this book onto anybody else. It's just a PDF. So you can try, but it would make more sense for them to buy it directly from us. I don't even mind if you share the PDF on with somebody else, if it will help them, to be perfectly honest. I just want to get this into as many hands and eyeballs and brains as possible. And I do hope that the people who need it most won't be the ones who least want to read it. And that is going to be possibly a conundrum for us here, which is why we're talking about it like this today, really.
I think it's important that the book itself, it comes from a place of personal experience. It comes from a place of you wanting to make sure the experience for Remote Work Europe is enriched and not filled with these kind of predatory attitudes and aspects of joining these MLMs. But it's, on the whole, it's empathetic. There's no judgment. There's no mockery. It's a very balanced and fair approach to help people look at real opportunities and to just consider what they're currently involved in. So I would recommend anyone who's, again, might feel like they're in one, have a look, but just bring your healthy skepticism, have a look at it, read the book. If you have someone in your life you think might be part of it, it's worth you reading it just to find out. Because again, through the pandemic, these things are rife. They come on again. We're going through an age now where AI is taking things over, and people are scared about losing more work, and they're looking for opportunities. And there will always be somebody to take advantage of people looking for opportunities, trying to find legitimate ways to bring in income to themselves and their families. So highly recommended that everyone give it a read who's interested in MLMs.
Thank you. And, I appreciate everybody in the Remote Work Europe network who helps be vigilant about these things, because we don't let any of them post directly in the groups, but we know that people try and slip in under the radar. They try and comment. We get a lot of these teaser comments, like if somebody is talking about they're looking for work or they've been ripped off or something, it's like, you get these comments which are basically a man to ask me what I do. Please, because they know they're not allowed to DM you. And it's also deceptive. I think that's one of the things I find really particularly icky about it, is the lack of transparency. And I think the only reason for that is because it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. These things started, I think I go right back into the history in the book with sort of door-to-door sales of Avon and Tupperware. And that was when, in an era where the only people you could buy things off were people in your town, really. And there was probably, one place you bought your vegetables and one place you bought your kitchen stuff and things like that. And if there was a new product line, you wouldn't even know about it or hear about it. There was no Instagram. There were relatively few, even sort of print publications would be expensive and difficult to advertise in. So you heard about stuff from your neighbors and influential connectors. And it made sense even for the distribution then to take place from one person to the next and so on. And it's 2024. We have global supply chains now. In fact, I got something same day delivery from Amazon last week. It's the first time in Valencia that's happened. It must be the new depot in Paterna. And this is what our supply chain looks like today. And that's why earlier this year, one of the original people involved in this, Avon, filed for liquidation. I think it was in the summer. And as of this week, yesterday, Tupperware as well, one of the other big ones. People do not buy food containers through their neighbors. It's just this is not how it works now. So this is why they're coming in your comments saying, DM me about this great opportunity, because if you try to explain it openly online, it just doesn't add up. You know, people would laugh at this, surely. How did you last buy a food container, Jim? Was it at a party?
It was through Amazon. No, I don't get invited to these food containers at birthday parties, I'm afraid, any longer. But certainly through Amazon, or a friend might lend us bring some food over. But yeah, there's no there's
I'll give it back to you. I'll wash it up and give it back to you. Don't worry, one day. Yeah.
I've been meaning to ask you. But you're right, the local, that kind of local feel of the one person in town who you knew, there's that inkling of trust and buy-in, because you have these small communities. And again, that leads into these, again, bigger communities, but you have this, where you might have this large arcing MLM, you've got these small local nodes bringing up their local communities and bringing the trust, bringing the experience of saying, join me, I've been doing this, this has been great for me. And again, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. You need to look, and you need to kind of do some research to find out if this is actually, but independent research away from the horse's mouth, as it were.
And there are lots of, I linked to some of them in the indices. You can check out. There are a sort of MLM anti-groups, blogs, there are Reddit threads, there are lots of people who are sharing their experiences. I really wanted this book to not be an anti-MLM publication, because I feel like that's all I've done in the past, is just say, nope, get out, you're blocked, this is what's really happening. And I've done nothing to help the people who are already involved, or who might be on the periphery, or who might be concerned about a friend who's maybe got sucked in, or maybe has a garage full of product they can't sell and they don't know what to do. And so I wanted to create something that acknowledged that there might be lots of different factors going on, emotional and social as well as financial, because what happens, and again, it's this mirror of evangelical cult-like religions, is that you get this kind of love bombing from people welcoming you in the first place. And they're your best friend, and they're going to help you, and you're going to make money together, and it's so amazing. But then when you have voices of caution from outside that, the people who knew you before, who were saying, well, hang on a minute, isn't this just one of the, then they're haters. They're holding you back. They're going to stop you being successful, come closer to us and further from them, until suddenly this person is left without any of their normal support networks and their social structures. And also those people who used to provide a bit of a sounding board and a sense check that you could say, is this okay? Does this sound like a reasonable thing? Once you remove people from that, it's much easier to take them along with you into this darker place where, they have to keep buying the product, they have to stay in the program, they have to move up through the levels, and that becomes the sole aspiration. But then if somebody suddenly wakes up one morning and realizes they don't want this anymore, they might not have much to fall back on. They might not have those support networks, or they might feel like they don't. And honestly, one of my messages I want to get across here is that you do still have those friends. They're worried sick about you. You might have dropped them, but they haven't dropped you. And they'll still be there for you. Like if you were in a bad relationship or a bad job or something, you might not have called them back for a while. But honestly, they're just the other side of that barrier that you have put up, and it will come down very easily. And they'll be there for you, I'm sure. I've even got templated messages and communications that you can use in the book, both to formally withdraw from programs and communicate to the people you're working with, but also to try and reach out across some of those social divides and bridges that you might think are burned away in shame, but they're not. The people who care about you will still be there for you. And I've heard that over and over again from people who have decided to quit and move on. And that's the final section of the book, really, is what you move on to. And I think that was one of the things that I also wanted to offer these people, was to try and look at the skills that you've learned through your involvement in these programs, or your personal inclinations and aptitudes that drew you to that life in the first place. Whether it was me thinking I'm never going to make enough earrings to be at 5 craft fairs at the same time anyway, and it's not possible. I need something, we're at that earliest inclination of what scaling a business might involve. Maybe you joined up because you're brilliant at the party plan and the talking to people in groups. You don't have to trick them into coming to the health tips seminar in order to make money doing that. You could be an event host and something perfectly transparent and legitimate. There are ways that, or maybe you really like the idea of a business in a box where everything is laid out for you, but then you could buy into a legitimate franchise where you have a territory and you have structured support and you have the manuals and so on, and you have management support that doesn't have a vested interest in keeping you in an unsuitable role. So there are so many things that you can do if you're tempted by this lifestyle, if you ever have been, if you know somebody who's always jumping from one program to the next because they're not a job person. That's fine. That's great. There are just so many other things that they could do than getting into one of these programs. So that's the message I'm really hoping that people will take away from the book.
Well, that's it. There's no denying people, they have skills. And it's a shame to let other people take advantage of those when you could be using them for your own betterment. And there are soft skills you pick up. There are presentation skills. There are confidence skills you can see being utilized. And use those for yourself.
Yes.
Get out there, pour them into something. Find your niche and push that out if you're looking for something to do. There's lots of opportunity.
Your own business. It's so, you and I, self-employed, Jim, we always have been chronically unemployable. But there's nothing better than really having your own business and being able to say that without people sniggering behind their hands because they know that you're just part of one of these programs. I went to one in Costa Blanca a few years ago, which was aloe-based skincare. People may have heard of it. And these products were shipped from somewhere in Ohio or so. In fact, the woman presenting it couldn't answer me about the exact provenance of these products. And we went outside into the host's garden and it's full of aloe. This stuff grows in Spain. There are people cultivating it. You could work with a local supplier. You could reduce that business product miles down to next to zero. If you want to promote aloe-based skincare, there are so many opportunities on your doorstep. You don't have to buy it in. Shipped in ready-made products from somewhere. It's manufactured in China, then it's shipped through this warehouse in Ohio, then it arrives in Spain for you to sell to your neighbors, or you could just give them a cutting from the pot outside your front door and they could have all the aloe gel they would ever need in a lifetime.
Let's talk about the carbon cost of shipping all those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But then they say, oh no, all these products are really natural and environmental. Make it make sense.
Well, they're plants. Yeah. Good. I think just having a look through. I think do we have any questions from the viewers?
I don't know if we've got questions coming through because some of these streams from social media don't always sync up immediately. So what I want to do is I will come back to all the threads in the different groups because we're on all the different networks, and I would put the links in there. But I will also, so I don't normally respond to DMs on social media, but I want to whilst we're promoting this publication, because I know that some of the people who are going to benefit from this most might not want to ask questions publicly. And that's okay. If you've got questions that are burning in your mind, or is this or isn't this, or shouldn't I get out? What should I do? Then I really encourage you to use social DMs, and I will try to be responsive to them over the next few days. I have some VA help there. As I say, I don't normally even look at them because it's all such a zoo since running these groups on Facebook, but I want to try and help people, whether you reply to an email, use the contact form on our website. If you have questions that you would want to ask now, but you're not sure, then I simply want to say, please reach out. There's an awful lot of answers in the book, but I also want to offer personal support to anybody who needs an extraction team, who needs a little bit of reassurance, who needs any help developing your personal strategy to get the hell away from these people. Because the other side of it, there's so many opportunities. And you don't have to be a business expert. You don't have to have gone to business school. You don't have to, because this is the disconnect. People say, I want to have my own business, but I don't know where to start. We'll help you. You can join Remote Work Europe Connected. You can brainstorm ideas in private. you don't have to join anything. You can do it completely publicly in the groups that we've got going. And, if you've got a legitimate business idea, we'll help you try and figure it out and figure out what your next steps are. You can do it at very low marginal cost. You can spin up an idea, you can test it, you can get feedback on it. There are so many things you can do now that you couldn't do in the 40s. So selling door to door made sense, but it's just, it doesn't make any sense now. So let's help you do it properly and have your own real remote work.
And be 100% in control of it as well.
Absolutely, because there's no better feeling in the world, honestly, than doing real work and really helping people.
That's a great offer to keep your DMs open. So certainly take advantage of Maya's expertise to help you navigate this. How much longer is the early bird special on for the book?
That voucher early 30x will be live until midnight on the 22nd. So you've got right through the weekend to think about it. And it's a book. It's not like committing to a year-long mastermind program. You've got to look at your budget. If this is right for you, I hope you'll be able to jump on it quickly. It's not a big cost commitment. It's a hell of a lot less than buying into any of these programs, or even picking up your weekly batch of wax melts or supplements or whatever. So, I would say don't overthink it. We're throwing in this third off just to try and get it as widely distributed as possible in these early days, and really look forward to your thoughts and your feedback about it too.
Great. Well, I think if there's nothing else to touch on, I think that's all everyone needs to know. The book is available now online at the link below, and the early bird special, the early bird discount, early bird special, how American am I, is available until through the weekend. And as Maya said, she welcomes all your DMs and comments to get in touch to speak about how you might navigate leaving an MLM and help with templates and such. So please do take advantage of it. Maya, this has been it's a great resource. I'm happy to have been a part of helping with it and having a read through. So thank you very much. And I hope it goes very well with sales. I hope people buy it.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Jim, for putting me on the other side of the screen this time rather than me hosting. It's great to have. You could have just had me waffling on, but it's just so much nicer when it's a bit of a conversation. So I appreciate everybody on the Remote Work Europe team, incidentally, who have proofread, who have contributed ideas, people in the connected community who've helped bounce this around. Don't forget, connected people, you have this already. This is part of your membership benefit, so don't buy it. Everybody else, you can use the link below, or you can get to it via the store link on our main website. So it should be there now. I'll just check that that's actually gone live as it's supposed to. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being part of our communities. And get yourself a real online business. We're here to help.
Indeed.
Bye for now.
Take care. Bye-bye.